team yesterday to Silverline and did a walk around for our maintenance plan. So we can talk about that today.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
I don't have the time on that off the top of my head, but I'll get it.
Okay.
And are you giving you're giving the Silverline update you just said? Right, okay.
Yes, that's different subject, yes.
Okay.
Today is the 12th, that's crazy.
We have a pump track discussion with a background discussion from Walt. Should we just postpone that, or do you know what Walt would have said?
Contract, no, we need to-
He sent notes.
Yeah.
That-
Okay.
And I've heard his opinion too. I could try to paraphrase, but I mean, he would like to be here for the discussion, I'm certain, so.
We'll just
Let's
shelf
table it then,
Okay.
yeah. Sounds like a good plan. Still have a lot of input.
Okay.
Said 5 o'clock, man.
Okay, thank you. I think we're it, because Kennedy Roden said he was going to be sick too.
Curious, is Uta an active member? She's on all the emails, but
She's an alternate, but her work schedule doesn't allow her to be here every day. So she's not even so she's pretty much.
All right. And I haven't met you yet.
Hi. I'm Miranda Wyatt.
Hi, Miranda. Are you new on the committee, or, okay?
official
We're
meeting.
virtuals
Sorry,
for
yeah.
so long. Yeah, it's not surprising me to see new faces.
Yeah, this is my first
Hi.
official one, so.
Great,
You don't know
welcome. Okay.
What was your name?
Lucy.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Maybe we should all introduce ourselves since we got a new member. Chris, why don't you start?
Sure. I'm Chris Bubenak.
Lucy,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
we can call to order and then we can do that.
Yeah,
since it's-
sure.
yeah.
I was trying to act like we all knew each other. Okay, are we on?
Yep.
All right. Well, everyone, welcome to the October 12th meeting of the Town of Woodfin's Park and Greenway Advisory Board Committee. I would like to call the meeting to order. And the first item on our agenda is to approve this agenda. Can I ask for a motion to support the agenda?
Do you still want to do the introductions? I was going to add that to the agenda if it's required.
Okay, we'll add introductions once we
Approve the
approve.
agenda with that.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? And the minutes from the September 14th meeting.
Move for approval.
I second.
Okay. Gerald moved. And who seconded over here? Okay.
Ann.
Ann did. All right. So we'll begin then with some introductions of members of the committee, starting with Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Bubenak. I live here in Woodfin. I work for Asheville Parks and Recreation.
Awesome. Miranda Wyatt. I work for the YMCA.
I'm Ann Coltwriter, and I live in Woodfin, and have children at Woodfin Elementary. Work at AB Tech.
Great.
Nothing to do with parks.
I'm Lucy Crown. I don't live in Woodfin. I almost do. I'm a Woodfin wannabe, but I own a blue building down on the corner, and I am a professional greenway and transportation planner.
I'm Coral Darby. I am also a Woodfin resident, and I have a communications firm in Asheville called Darby Communications. And I have 2 daughters that are in the Asheville City School, and one and one off to college. So, been living in the area for almost 20 years.
I'm Gerald Green, and I own property in Woodfin, but don't live here. And I have lived in Asheville 33 years. So I have on a vintage Belshire.
Yes, you
t-shirt.
do. I noticed that. Good old
And
Belshire.
I don't work anymore, except some limited consulting. As a city planner, worked with Lucy a bit, worked for the city of Asheville, had my own firm, and then went to Knoxville for a while as director of their planning, combined city-county planning department.
Yep. Awesome. All right, well, welcome, Miranda. And are you replacing Brian?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Are you going to be on the project management subcommittee with Gerald and I then?
He said to bring that up for discussion.
Okay.
And not assume that that was happening, so
Okay,
that's something we can.
I'm gonna talk about subcommittees in a second, so we can.
okay, great. Okay, there's no public forum necessary today. Presentations? Okay, moving on to item F on the agenda, subcommittee reports and questions.
Are there subcommittee reports this month? Have subcommittees met?
Not from the project management subcommittee.
Not from the communications and marketing.
So that's what I wanted to talk about. I understand, when I first came on, they were talking about reorganizing the project management subcommittee into something else. And I was originally thinking we could make that more of an operations and maintenance committee. But then I understood that communications and marketing really wasn't meeting either and didn't have a whole lot going on. So I wanted to open that up for discussion to, do we want to reorganize the subcommittees into different topics, or do we want to have general responsibilities of committee members, or what are your thoughts on how that needs to look?
I like the idea of making the project management more the operations and maintenance, because there needs to be some attention to that, it appears, and then out of that could grow projects, and we could still do project management if projects come, but have a broader purview than just projects, because we haven't met for a while, because there are no ongoing projects, but there'll always be some maintenance and operations issues that to be addressed.
Yeah, I feel like it ebb and flows. Like, we've had times over the past year where communications, marketing committee, subcommittee has been really busy, around specific events. It's just we're in a little bit of a lull.
Okay.
So honestly, I think it could go either way. And I'm still happy to help with the comm side of things, as there's a need. I guess I'm not really sure.
So here was my original thought in the project management, the operations and maintenance subcommittee, and some of the responsibilities they would have for obviously determining maintenance issues in the parks or things we need to follow up on, but also helping recommend events for the facilities or coordinating volunteers for different activities. And so getting completely away from project management and focusing on operations and maintenance. I think that's very important right now, especially where we are with the planning stages and the construction of the facilities. And so, to me, I think everybody could be involved with that. So that's why I got the idea of it being a general responsibility committee as a whole type look versus the two subcommittees. Especially if one subcommittee doesn't have a lot going on for a couple of months and they're not doing anything. Well, operations and maintenance is super busy. So I would recommend that we do the general responsibility focus on operations and maintenance at this point. But if you disagree or think one of the subcommittees is that important, we can talk about that.
Can I ask a clarifying question? When there is something that marketing communications needs to get out that's going on in Parks and Greenway, is there someone in the town who does marketing? Like, what is the role? Okay.
With several night park grand opening, I work a lot with Coral, that's obviously her profession, with press releases and flyers and stuff like that. So I would get a little more involved with that subcommittee, with those types of things.
And we don't have to make the call today. It's just kind of putting that thought out there to get feedback and get your thoughts and
I think
do
it's
some
a good
reorganization.
Because in my mind, there's a lot of work to be done with operations, use of the parks and maintenance and upgrading. I think all of us have a good perspective and good ideas about what to do with that. So we're a committee of the whole, or just a responsibility of the entire committee. We're to ensure that all the ideas and thoughts are brought to the table.
I think the original thought of having the two subcommittees was meetings of 3, which
Right.
works well, because then there's not an official meeting that needs to be scheduled if there's 4 or more. So, yeah, I like the defining groups, because then it feels like I know what's expected, or it's more clear that if there's something that's communications related, the 3 of us are going to handle it first, and then maybe request some help or support. But by being assigned to a committee, it's a little more clear to me what the expectation is. And it's okay if there's nothing going on, but when things do arise, I think it's important that people know kind of who are the point people to go to on that.
Well, it sounds like communications and marketing does kind of pick up sometimes, so that may be necessary. I was just thinking that operations and maintenance is going to be pretty heavy-handed.
Sure.
Well, and it seems like there's a lot for that subcommittee underneath the bullet points here.
Okay.
Usually I see like events and volunteers kind of separate from like the like operations and maintenance type stuff. But isn't there also like some rule that if more than 3 of us are together, then technically that we have to call like a public meeting as opposed to just being able to like meet on our own? And I think that was also a reason to split us into 2 subcommittees. And also there was just a lot more marketing and communication stuff at the beginning because of Silver Line Park in particular.
And Ann hit one of my reasons for not wanting a separate subcommittee for operations. I've spent way too much time in my life in meetings and stuff.
So I'm hearing keep the subcommittees in some form or fashion.
I think as a default kind of understanding of people's roles, it's helpful, but I'm happy to help with operations and management things if that's what makes sense for the situation that's coming up.
I was going to say the same thing. You know, while we're in a lull, or if we have capacity, you know, we can play in dual roles.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who's on what subcommittee, just for my benefit?
Operations, Lucy and me.
Gerald and I, Brian was, but he's no longer.
And then the 3 of you are on.
Tom's.
So do you want to keep those subcommittees and redefine them and their responsibilities? Maybe keep some communication and marketing on one side, but as Chris said, take some of the operations to that committee, like the programming side of things, since that's probably going to be a while before we get to that point.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And if anyone has any suggestions with regard to operations and maintenance, bring it to Lucy, and Lucy will do it.
I heard that.
I can start a working document on teams for each one, and we can maybe work on that over the next month, so we can refine it a little more for the next meeting.
And I think I need to be added to the team.
Oh, okay.
I'm not on there.
And I'm still comfortable with our comms. Like, I think, I know the 3 of us work really well together, and our skill sets, our experience in our professional lives blend really well.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, Ann is a heck of a proofreader, and that is not a skill set that I have, so. But I'm open to if the team feels like we need to shuffle, but I feel like it's working
Okay.
really well.
Works for me.
And I'm happy to fill Brian's spot. I mean, operations and maintenance is a little more of my background than marketing, so.
You don't want me coordinating volunteers and volunteer opportunities. That's not my skill set. Just want you to know.
No.
Well, and I think that I don't really know what exactly those would all be or events at this point, but you know, like the upcoming meeting that Buncombe County's having about the Greenway, that's a big part of what we're working on as well. And so if we did have a group that was sort of like that point for events and stuff like that and getting the word out, which I think falls under marketing communications as well, then that's something that we could definitely help with in addition to, what their team is doing.
Sounds good. That's all I had for subcommittees, unless anybody else has any thoughts.
That was more than enough. Okay, let's see. Moving on to old business, item G on the agenda. Amendment to bylaws, conflicts of interest. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I guess last meeting or the meeting before, there was conversation around adding a provision to the bylaws regarding conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
So, I think I understand that you voted on it then, but maybe that's not correct, for adopting the amendment to the bylaws, but we can do that again today. Highlighted there on the screen is the amendment that just adds a reference to the town, the commissioner's bylaw, Woodfin's conflict of interest policy, and any amendments or changes to that. Basically, this committee is adopting that document.
Okay. So you need someone to make a motion to approve the amendment to our bylaws. Okay, can I open the floor for a motion to approve the amendment to our bylaws to include section 2F.2?
I gotta just take it in for a second. It's very legalese.
I'll read it to you. It is the duty of every committee member to avoid actual or perceived interest in an action that results in or has the appearance of resulting in personal, organizational, or professional gain. Therefore, this committee adopts the Town of Woodfin's conflict of interest policy currently in effect, and as it may be changed or amended.
I'll make a motion to.
Chris makes a motion.
I'll second.
Gerald seconds. And everyone in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let's see, next one is State of the Parks update.
I apologize.
No,
Silverline
there's-
Park is not finished.
There's a different, I have B as Silverline Park building update.
Oh,
Oh, Silverline, I'm sorry.
gotcha.
You're right, section B.
So this is in reference to a subcommittee meeting for the Silverline building that met a couple weeks ago. I just wanted to update you on that. That committee was myself and Ann and Walt and Eric Hardy and Shannon Tuck. So we discussed potential uses of the building or the area around the building and the identified needs for that area. Some of the needs we talked about were community meeting space, a Parks and Recreation staff office, if and when we add employees, maintenance storage space, permanent restrooms, pickleball courts. And so one of the main topics of that conversation was removal of the building and addition of pickleball courts, and I'll get to that in a minute. But we brainstormed ideas about recycling the materials from the building if it were to be removed. We talked about the materials of the building being insulation and the roofing and drop ceiling mechanics, and identified other things that might be reusable and recyclable. And we discussed options for partnering with Buncombe County or using a local conservation service or putting out requests for proposals on those items. So that's still a work in progress. But at the end of the day, we decided to create the survey that you've all seen about what we should do with that area. And I'll get to the results of that survey so far in a minute. But a lot of the meeting was spent about discussion about pickleball courts. Walt did a lot of research on what that would look like. So he determined that we could fit 5 competitive courts within the footprint of the existing building, pickleball courts, with an elevated structure with bathrooms and a viewing area on the top. Looks like this. And I think Walt created that drawing, so he spent a good amount of time on this research.
Impressive.
He did two
Nobody's
perspectives.
gonna live up
too.
to Walt.
Oh, my goodness.
So that structure would be 20 by 40 with 800 square foot per floor, and it includes 2 restrooms with additional space for storage. So the conservative estimate that he came up with per court was $25,000. That included surfacing, striping, permanent nets, lighting, and fencing. We'd have to determine what the pad underneath the building was like, because that cost could increase if that pad was deemed unusable. And then there was a recommendation to add $1,000 per year for ongoing maintenance. Any questions about that meeting, thoughts, anything I missed, Ann?
Would there be any restrooms? Yeah, restrooms.
Restrooms. No, how did he come up with 25,000?
I think just comparison with other, I'm not exactly sure. I'd have
How
to.
about the cost for the pavilion and the restrooms? Any idea of what? I think it's a good idea, just.
I don't, nothing surprises me about costs of things anymore, and 25,000 seems so cheap to me, but I could be wrong because I don't do pickleball courts.
Well, we could be wrong, that's conservative, so it might be, that was just his estimate based on his research.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what the state of that pad is that's underneath it, because if it's just some basic resurfacing, it shouldn't be too bad. But I want to say that the Weaver Park tennis courts that were just redone, which is 2 tennis courts, so that would be, equivalent to about 4 pickleball courts, all new fencing, lighting, water fountains and stuff like that. I think that was around $100,000.
Okay.
So it could be somewhere in that range with it, but also I don't know how much was already there, because I think that those are almost like a complete rebuild.
Okay.
And the $25K per court doesn't include breaking down the building, the demolition, does it? Which would,
This
is
is
a couple
just simply for the
$100,000, right?
pickleball courts if
Right.
that building wasn't there.
Once we're down to the base, okay.
And we did talk about the cost of demolition, so that is on our radar. I just wanted to give you the overview of the pickleball court research.
Yeah, excellent. And are we moving in this direction because of the positive feedback that we've been receiving on the pickleball survey in general? The consensus is this is the direction we should go for that silver
Yeah.
line in that building? Okay.
Pickleball is becoming a big deal, I think, so.
Like a dill pickle. Yeah, and I don't know what the next thing for timeline though is in terms of, I will say any survey that we put out gets co-opted by the pickleball community. It doesn't matter if it is in a part of town that they will never ever go to because of where a certain park is located. They run up the numbers a whole lot in there, and so that is something to take into consideration as well. But they are, anytime that there's a new one that's built, they come. So, there is definitely a demand for it. And so I don't know if the survey is one thing, and then there's also public meetings or what that next sort of thing is. I'm sure that y'all will develop whatever that is. But there's a lot of space there for stuff.
And so unique to have 5 professional courts adjacent to the river. There's very few communities, I'm sure, across the country that can make that claim.
Yeah, I
So
think
from
you're
a
right.
communication standpoint, that's a great selling point.
Pickleball tournaments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, speaking of, moving on to the results of the survey. So I don't know if you read.
Just a professional planning
Yeah.
observation, but a spike like that usually shows that an advocacy group got a hold of the survey.
Paul sent out the email, you got the email, and he explained that he did contact his neighborhood group
Right.
who included some pickleball enthusiasts.
Yeah.
But I did break, and this is just where we are today. This is going to be open until the end of the month, so I don't want to go too far into the details of the results we've gotten. I have started manipulating the data a little bit, and I did pull out the Woodfin residents and compare their
good.
responses, and it was still 72% for pickleball. So I thought that was interesting. For respondents to the survey, about 56% are not Woodfin residents and 44 were, so it's kind of half and half, almost.
And that was a great suggestion that Walt made to share. I know in my subdivision, we do have a Facebook page. I'll make sure I get that up,
Yeah.
share it with.
Yeah, if you can
Mount
get the
Living.
word out, that would definitely be helpful. Interestingly enough, it looks like food truck court's number 2.
Yeah.
With way less responses than pickleball, but still something to take into account.
It's a pretty exciting idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other things are basketball, green space.
Dog park. is number
Dog
3.
park, yeah.
It's just going to tear that property up, I think.
Yeah.
That would be more appropriate on the Beaver Dam Greenway with all that green space.
But that's private, right, that land around the,
I think Woodfin has access to it and are planning to build a greenway up through there. And the YMCA gave the property to the town, if I heard the story right.
Are you talking about the, like Old Beaver Dam Creek Road, that part of it?
Yeah, at MSD, where you turn, the greenway will turn up and follow the creek
Yeah.
back towards,
I thought that was part of that TIF that happened, that developed Reynolds Village, and that the same owner owned that, but it's a brown space, I believe, and so only maybe like 10% of it could be used for something like apartments, and the rest of it would only be appropriate for like soccer fields, greenways, recreational things and stuff like that. I don't know if the Y is involved with that or not.
I don't know if the Y's involved with it either, but it is included in the town's plans for the Greenway, for the Beaver Dam Creek portion.
I thought it was
And
a
is-
public-private partnership, like the land is privately owned, but there is
It
like
is.
permission to have the greenway
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, I know that it was part of the tax incremental funding thing, and where it was like the future property taxes that might come in or something. I don't remember exactly how TIF works, but,
It's actually the French Broad Greenway and the Beaver Dam Greenway are combined into one project now, so it is part of what's being planned.
I was just thinking of it from the dog park perspective, like where would be a good place for a dog park?
Yeah.
And probably
Would be
not
there.
right on the river. It's
Yeah.
not the best space, but up there might be. If the town has access to more open space up there, it's a possibility.
yeah, I agree.
You as well.
And I know that when I was at the county, there were discussions about, because the soccer team was thinking of like trying to build their own space, and they were talking with like the Orange Pill and AC Entertainment before Rabbit Rabbit got developed about doing like some sort of outdoor space that could also play soccer and stuff. But I mean, those conversations would have been like 5 or 6 years old at this point. I haven't heard anything more since then.
Okay.
That's all I have for that, unless there's anything else.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're on State of the Parks update. Last year's assessments on the website, sorry, I'm about to cough. Time to revisit the parks and report on necessary or desirable repairs. So I know, should we go through the parks that have been assessed already, or what? Are these, is this the list here? Okay.
Just general comments about.
Yeah, I think, or did it,
I think.
who did Maney Park, if
Right.
anyone wants to lead the conversation
Sure.
about each park?
I did Maney. The general feel driving by is kind of run down. The fencing is bent and old, and the mulch is old and it's compacted, and it's the edges of the playground are sort of falling down the hill. There's a total opening in the fence without a gate that goes down to a manhole. That might not, that might be a reason why someone wouldn't want to have a toddler at that playground. And the oversized parking lot is also very noticeable, but we all know there's pickleball there now. I would like to see it kind of be, if it could be resurfaced, so there's not the issue of the broken pavement, and then still striped, but be more of like a recreational style, bring your own net type pickleball court for people who aren't interested in the high-end side of pickleball, or don't care, just want to kind of play in a relaxed area. That could be an option for that parking lot. There's also the drainage that Walt has talked, he's got more of a big vision, kind of how you might deal with the drainage of digging something at the end of the parking lot, putting in the drain, and restructuring the drainage around the edge of the area. So something with the drainage needs to happen. I think it would be great if I had lots of money available, I think I would pull up the playground equipment and reconfigure, like get rid of the stuff that's junky or broken. But like the monkey bars are still great. Like some of the more metal products are in good condition. So maybe reconfigure and put like a pour-in-place surface, which is what's underneath the boat at Silverline, or over here at Geneva Maney, which is more expensive but requires less maintenance and people dumping wood chips every year to bring it back up to the base. So it could use a major overhaul if we wanted it to be more than just like a park for the people who live on the two streets that are next to it, which is, it's fine, it's nice for that to exist, but it does feel kind of junky.
Since you are in and out of there regularly, based on where, where you reside, would you say that more people are using the courts or the playground?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Courts?
I would say.
So really no one uses the playground?
I mean, the playground, I see somebody on the playground maybe once a week.
Oh,
and
okay.
I probably see somebody on the pickleball courts 2 to 3 times a week. Yeah. So yes, I think the pickleball has brought some life into that. Shade would also be nice. People might be more likely to come if there were some shade canopies or.
Right.
And the bathroom issue.
And the bathroom.
We've talked about
right.
that
So
for a
yeah, I
while.
added that too. If there could be something like Luke's suggestion of the Portland blue and a new surface for the playground with the reconfiguration and shade, and
So a total rebuild.
kind of. I mean, it's fine as it is, but
I know enough just to get myself into trouble. Maybe Chris knows more, but there are standards for playgrounds.
Yes,
and
there
I'm
are.
pretty sure this
It
one
does not
would
meet it.
fail. And
Yeah.
I know that mulch is not the surface that they recommend anymore.
Yeah, and
because
I
a
don't
lot
even
of
think
that-
that's like the specially engineered
No, it's
mulch
not.
that keeps spiders and stuff out of it. I think that's just like the mulch that you get at the top of the street over here.
Yeah, no, it definitely isn't like to code type mulch.
Yeah.
And it would take truckloads to get it up
Yeah.
to the level it needs to be. So.
All right, well,
yeah.
maybe it would be interesting to know what immediate cheap fixes
Yeah.
could be, and then what really needs to be
So
done.
I did that on the slideshow. There's a part of like what could be done now, which might be pressure washing the play equipment, and I had something else: pressure washing play equipment, a shade, like some sort of sunshade might be nice and cheap, but then yes, I had kind of a long-term vision, which is all the things I just thought about.
Yeah. It's got competition because it's so relatively close to this great one here. so-
Right.
And the river, the Silver Line. So it's got competition. It's got to up its game.
And so maybe the transition would be away from it being for little children and it being more of some other purpose.
Well, if there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood, I don't know. Anyhow,
Yeah.
well, thanks for looking into that. And then there's the Riverside Park.
Yeah, that was me. So we're not gonna go through the slides.
Do you have slides?
Oh, it was a Google Doc.
I think it's been shared with you, Adrienne, but,
Aw,
Are those your dogs?
oh, so cute.
Hey, you need me to forward it to you,
What?
you need me to forward it to you.
I need it to show up on here.
While she's looking for that, I have a question. And looking at, it seems a lot of these parks have the same issue, which is deferred maintenance and attention. And Ann brought up, immediate fixes in the long term, but do we know what we want long term? Is it financially wise to do a lot of quick fixes and then see what the long-term use of these parks are and erase all that we've done? Or should we do a real, it seems almost what the town needs is a Parks and Rec master plan, so we know where we're going. I've got a list of immediate fixes for community center. It's quite expensive, and is it wise to
Right,
use that
doesn't make
money
sense, yeah.
to do something in the short term that we then provide for the longer term use of those parks?
Definitely.
Yeah, and part of the reason why Woodfin signed that 10-minute walk commitment was because every year, I don't know if they still do it, but they pick a certain number of places to do like a comprehensive master plan or something like that, and that's one of the requirements that you have to do with it. Woodfin didn't receive whatever year they applied for it, they didn't receive it. But I mean, so there has been discussion of that going back a few years at least with it, and we've got these two river parks now that sort of had comprehensive master plans for each one of them, but the existing facilities and any sort of future, and of course the Greenway has its own. There's nothing that I know of that exists for them. And how long have you lived over?
since 2006.
And has anything changed with that park other than getting
The
rid of the
skate park
skating?
was removed, but no, there's been nothing done to the.
So that play equipment is definitely like 20+ years old. Over here, I did this park and I'll talk about when I get there, but I mean, I'm guessing that this is probably towards the end of its lifetime. And part of that is also that, when you have a public works department that isn't specific to Parks and Recreation, is there's a different level of service that's happening to the equipment that's there. You're getting, fences repaired and the grass mowed and stuff like that, but you're not really getting that look at the equipment that extends the life of it. That's a pretty picture.
Poor thing.
So there's the scary
There's
manhole.
that. Extreme sport.
Yeah. And so they put this gate up last year as a response to this survey, but it doesn't
Block it off.
it doesn't really
Fix the problem.
do what it's supposed to. Right, it doesn't fix the problem because there's that situation there, but the actual gate doesn't even really, like the little doodad doesn't.
It doesn't
It
lock.
doesn't work.
It doesn't, yeah.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't latch.
Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah, so mulch should be hitting the
The
bottom of
plastic,
each of
right.
those.
You shouldn't see
things,
those bars.
Right.
Does anyone know when it was mulched last?
Say it again.
Does anyone know when it was mulched last?
Oh, I would say within the last 2 years.
Wow.
I don't know that it was actually brought up to the bottom
Right.
of but that's would be my memory of like when that was last done. Maybe.
So it should be flush with the top of the perimeter?
So if like a kid falls off, there's something soft to
Yeah.
be there.
was sad. It's dry in there though. And not for long, I'm sure, but we did find the handle on the ground and repaired it. But my thought is that maybe a Boy Scout troop could get a hold of all of them and repair them. And I've had an interaction with someone, and I just need to call the scout leader rather than the parent that I found. So I did my survey before we did the painting line, so I just wanted to document what happened with the tape. So that slide, it's sturdy somehow, but it's misaligned.
Yeah.
So like those little knobbies poking out should be in the slide, and they're not. And that was after a rain. Obviously, the flat area is dry, but that water lingers for a while.
And that was identified last year too?
Yeah.
And was there any follow-up conversation to that?
About the drainage? No, I mean, that feels like a bigger
Right.
thing.
I was just curious
With
if-
some digging involved.
And that's the pickle.
That's the
court
pickleball court,
now.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But those are some good monkey bars, like
Yeah.
you know, and the metal things are doing fine.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that is indicative of how, like, kind of mid-grade equipment was 20, 25 years ago. And it's faded, so even, like, I think a pressure wash isn't gonna do.
Not on, right, obviously not on the plastic, but the metal of
Yeah,
the structure with the roofs could improve it, but you're right, I mean, there's nothing to do about the plastic.
How dated is this equipment? What year did this park
No
go
idea.
in?
I don't know either. I'll have to get back to you on that.
I don't know what all the parks look like, because I'm still getting familiar with all of them, but I would think if we are talking about playgrounds down the road, to really think about adding some ADA accessible options for kids.
Yeah, this entire playground is not accessible with it, and I think, pour in place rubberized surfacing should probably be like a standard.
So that's just a summary?
That's just all I said, yeah, I've already said all that.
Yeah, well, mine's not quite as extensive. So my gut feel is like, we're not gonna do too much to this park, because we're pretty close to
Right.
gutting it anyways. But I do have a few suggestions, and I wanna kick off by saying, well done on the bathroom maintenance, because I've been down there numerous times, and I've seen the woman cleaning it, which is fantastic, yay. And then occasionally I'll open the door and just peek in, like random time when I'm down walking my dog. And, they get a little messy, but at least it's got toilet paper and there's soap. So that's great. So it's nice to see those maintained. Thank you for that. I think Walt liked the location of this little library. Cars, that's the entry exit. And I feel like if a car's parked there and they're looking at the little library, or pedestrians are standing there, that's somewhat of a hazard. In my opinion, it shouldn't be so close to the road and the entryway. So I think that we ought to move that one or take it out altogether for that reason.
Okay.
Maybe move it, well, what do? Do you leave it there until the park is reconfigured and then put it somewhere else, or do you move it now and?
We could move it now and put it at the southern end of the park, because I know that, I think Walt had suggested the northern end of the park, pulling that one up.
Yeah,
And I think
and
had been on
putting
Luke's list for a while, but I have a picture in here. I actually saw a family using it, and there's a park bench right there, and it's a beautiful spot overlooking the river. So in my mind, and there's a little footbridge over to French Broad, in my mind, that's just a really nice little quiet spot. You're so away from the road, where you could sit with a book and really enjoy it, and the gazebo's right there. So I like that location for the little library.
Maybe this is the one that goes to Silver.
So that's my suggestion on that spot, and then I'm ready to go to the next slide. And this is just like a general pet peeve of mine, especially when people have yard sales and they don't clean up their signs. I don't feel like public parks should be a place for people to advertise. I don't know if they have to get like permits. Now, these signs are for a very important cause. It's promoting getting into the foster care system and being a family that is involved, and it's information on how to get into the program. But I think in general, like our public spaces should be advertising, free of advertisements. So that just sort of bugs me. And then it's the litter issue, because and I see this every election season too, not all the signs get picked up, and it drives me insane. So I don't know what the protocol is for people to be able to stick their signs in at the park, but I'd like to.
Shouldn't be able to, so.
That one message board by the bathroom, anybody can open it, so I mean, it's free for all, whoever puts stuff in.
Oh, that board?
Yeah.
Yeah, that board, but this is like the real estate signs. And you can see there's a pressure washing company that came to my house last year and did a great job, but then at the end of Riverside, or at West City View, they stuck their signs in adjacent to Riverside Drive, and they never picked them up. I'm like, you can't do that. In my mind, it frustrates me.
Yeah, I mean,
There is rules around.
Yeah, there's ordinances, but it's
Yeah.
really hard to enforce when
Sure.
there's just so much out there.
Yeah.
But I agree, if we make a concerted effort on our park property, then we can just grab them whenever we're there.
That's right, and if we have a Parks and Rec manager, that individual maybe could clean them up when he or she is.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you can also let staff know, because we're not always around to see it, so we may not know it's
Sure.
there, but if you let us know, we can do
Okay.
something about
Can
it.
we just pick them up and trash or recycle them?
Yes,
Sure.
you can.
Yeah, and like I said, this one is
Okay, thank you,
promoting
Lisa.
foster care, which is so important, so I'm sorry to bring it up, but same token, I don't think our park should be a place to advertise.
Maybe, this is extra, but if the town is dealing with it, then a phone call to those people to say, this is not the place for your
Right.
sign, might help it not reappear.
Good point.
Do you know if our people pick up ones that are on Greenways, like if people start sticking them out there, or has there been much of a problem with people putting them on Greenways?
Yeah, maintenance picks them up, I think. They're not supposed to put them on there, and I don't ever see them on there.
Yeah, I don't see them really in our parks either, so.
So your maintenance is grabbing it.
Mhm.
Okay, so, yeah, here's the family that was, I just was like, oh, what a lovely moment. They're actually using the library right when I'm out working on this. So that's the north side of the park, and then there's a little footbridge that goes into the open space adjacent to the French Broad River Academy. So I like the location of that one. So that's all I wanted to add there. This has been an ongoing challenge, I think, with the park for a number of years. When we have flooding, a lot of sediment settles on the south side of the park on the paths, and they get really, really slippery. And there's 3 different areas, so I don't know if we can scrape that. Anytime it rains, of course, we're in a bit of a drought right now, and it's been dry, but I just happened to be down there after we had some moisture, and I'll often go for a jog down there, and I have to go around and run through the grass, which is fine. I do that so I don't slip, but I get concerned that people might slip and fall. I don't know if there's any way to clean that up, but that was just a thought on that. It's
Well,
just more of it.
And with the expansion and the new Greenway, I think that they are putting in drainage, like where, the wetlands absorb that stuff
Right.
around there, so hopefully that won't be an issue.
Right.
I've been there before too,
It is
and you
scary.
can't walk around it because everything's muddy around it too.
Yeah, it gets tricky. I know that it's going to be all mitigated in the near future, but I don't know if it's possible to just kind of clean it up now. Yeah, so, in general, I think the park looks really good, and short-term maintenance, my slides. I know this isn't really the space to do it, and I know it's Department of Transportation, so I live in Mountain Living, I come down West City View, I cross over, I walk Riverside Drive to get into that park, and I just really feel strongly that we need a flashing light or something to get cars to slow down. Like, it just scares me every time. And sometimes enough people from our subdivision have cut through, and I don't know if legally we're allowed to walk on the tracks, but we drop down off the Riverside Drive. We've made a little path to the train tracks, and then we'll walk in that way, which just doesn't feel right. Like, I'm like, oh, I think I'm trespassing, but I'm also like safer than being on Riverside Drive. So that was that. And then I just happened to notice, Adrian, that Luke's contact is still on the parks page. I don't know if you
Right
want.
now.
Thank you.
Not a moment, I guess not.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay,
Good job.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I did Roy Pope, which is right behind us over here. It's got two gateways. One is off of this parking lot that goes down to the picnic shelter. The other one is down on Jonestown Road, which is where I came in on, and it looks like that's been recently repaved and sort of relined. So that's nice. And it looks like there's some maybe new fencing, or they painted it or something. But yeah, the different amenities that are on there is picnic shelter, benches, bike racks, walking loop, restrooms, a big field that's at the bottom that I think is part of it, but not really sure. It looks like it from the GIS parcel. Water fountains, parking, and a playground that's kind of themed around like dragons and castles and stuff like that. So, and I was trying to figure out again how old it is, because I think it's getting towards the end of its lifespan.
It's probably 20 years old, I bet.
Yeah.
So here's just some more of the gateway pictures. You can see the fence, similar to Geneva Manny. Looks like it's in better condition than that, but still kind of like misaligned. And then here's the large field that's down at the bottom. The retaining wall is sort of coming apart, but the field itself looks like it's pretty maintained. It looks to me like it's about an acre, and I don't know if that's used for any organized stuff, or if people just like throw a football, play soccer, frisbee, that sort of stuff with it. I mean, y'all may see more since it's right behind the.
That's about all I see.
Yeah, it's nothing to organize. Every now and then the school will be down there, but most of the time it's just kids or dogs or whatever.
The 5K uses it for parking.
Okay.
And
They
then
use your parking, overflow parking.
in July, I think it might be around Labor Day. In the past, there's been a town celebration of some sort,
yeah.
and like the helicopter or the fire engine, like stuff, like big vehicles go there, and kids can see them. So.
And I'm a fan of multi-use fields. A lot of places that we put in baseball fields in Asheville over the years, baseball is sort of falling out of favor, but other sports like football are picking back up again, and ultimate frisbee is very popular, and then just like soccer pickup games and stuff like that. So I think that leaving this as a multi-use field, but you also have lots of opportunities to do other stuff with it if the master plan, if we say we had a need for something else. And then there were probably like 6 or 7 sections of fencing that were like this, and so that's just like some general maintenance that that should probably be easy to address.
Yeah, it's not even missing the slats.
Yeah. The restrooms in the plaza that were up there seem to be clean and maintained. I was there at probably like 8 o'clock in the morning, so they were open, and I don't know if they've been recently cleaned. As far as like park bathrooms go, I mean, I know that these don't look great, but they look better than a lot of other park bathrooms I've been in. There was no trash can up there other than this one that's like kind of removable, so I don't know if that's an opportunity for vandalism or something, and if we could possibly replace that. The mister, again, that may be something that's off already, and there were several benches that are like this that were in better condition than like the playground equipment and stuff was, because I think again they're metal, and there is more shade at this park than Geneva Manny, but I did notice that a lot of it was in direct sunlight, especially the playground. Oh yeah, and then over here to the left of the mister, I don't know if that's where like maybe hand sanitizer was, because it looked like it was a pretty tall post, but there used to be a little free library there that I didn't see during my visit, so that might have been where that was as well.
I think it's free at the library. I think if it got moved, it's right outside of town hall.
Okay.
This one's been up here for a while.
Okay. Well, then that was probably like hand sanitizer or something, but it was just a post at this point. The sandbox had sand everywhere, because there's nothing around the perimeter of the sandbox, and so I don't know if that ever gets sprayed off or what, but it was basically on every single play piece that was there, no matter how close or far away it was, which is, I don't know, maybe kids' creativity and stuff like that, but I thought it was gross. The shade structure is torn like on every single corner, so the cover of it, I think that the metal part of it is fine. It would just be replacing the cell. And then the playground is just, it's really showing its age. You can tell like some of the metal pieces have rusted out. A lot of the plastic pieces are popping at the seams with them. Again, sand over by the dragons over here. The pour in place is faded because it's been in direct sunlight for probably 20 plus years. So I don't know if that's like a complete replace or if they're able to just kind of do some resurfacing on top of it. We recently did a project at Herb Watts Park where there was already rubberized surfacing and they just put like a new color on top of it, and so that might be an option with it. The like whatever that spider web climbing structure thing is kind of fraying. So it's just like, just in general, the playground is going to need to be replaced soon.
That spider web is new.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's like within the last, there's 11, probably like last 5 years that was installed.
It was
What is the material?
replaced?
it's like a
It
wire
wasn't there, it was new.
rope-ish
Oh, because
type
I
thing.
remember when my kids were little, they played on it all the time.
Huh. Well, and then I guess it's new, because there
It must
wasn't
have
something there for a while
Yeah,
when
they
it came, I think.
must have replaced it. My kids are, 17 and 20, so I feel like it's been around for a while, but.
But I will say, as local playgrounds go, I remember when this one went in, which was about 20 years ago, and it's really big. It's got 2 large castle structures, the dragon, the sandbox area, swings, the web, all sorts of stuff. So I mean, there's a lot of space there, and I can tell that people probably still enjoy it. But it just, I just remember when I opened it, it was like such a big new shiny thing, and it is a little more diminished castle these days. And then this is the picnic shelter. Somebody, I guess, had been there before because there was food and stuff out. There's a small grill. The place in there where you put, I guess, where it's reserved and stuff like that, the glass could probably be cleaned or replaced with it. Depending on what the ultimate plan is for this park and the future of it, I would suggest maybe adding like some stone bases to the post, or like putting some beadboard or something at the top, just like cleaning it up a little bit to make it feel a little fresher. But I mean, in general, I mean, what is it, like $75 or something to rent it? So I mean, I think that like for you getting into
$33 for a 3 hour block.
33 for 3
okay,
hours.
$33 for 3 hours for a really large picnic shelter.
It's a bargain.
I think that it's very adequate for what it is. But again, like what I noticed here was it doesn't seem to be very accessible. Most of the park isn't, even with the pour in place and the sort of like paved area around it. There's a lot more that could be done to make it more accessible to people who have mobility challenges. And then these were just like some things at the end. This also had like a manhole cover type thing that wasn't quite on it. And then some of the sidewalk areas probably need to be shaved down if you have people who have those challenges, or to avoid tripping. Some of the fencing and stuff is just overgrown. And so, as this is close to town hall and elementary school, it's really highly visible. And so I think there's some easy things for the short term that can kind of improve the overall look of it, but there are some safety issues that will need to be addressed for the long term.
What's that wood sticking out of the sandbox?
No, that's like a hole in the ground that I think maybe like a meter, or it's right behind the bathrooms, and so maybe it's like where you turn the water on and off or something.
Oh, okay.
But it's not secured, and so it was kind of just sitting that way that day. And on next to like where that meter thing that's on the wall, there was like a wasp nest, which may have already been like taken care of at this point. I have lots more other pictures I can drop into our team's folders or you can take a tour yourself after we're done over here.
So nobody did Silverline?
My name is on the list as claiming it, but I didn't do it. So I have some comments about Silverline, but I can, maybe, I wonder if Walt stuck those in there today.
Well, I can just give a brief synopsis of our visit yesterday. Equinox, I'm gonna get out of this for a second and show you the maintenance plan that they developed, but we went out there and just did a walk around. So they came up with this plan. So there's a yearly inspection list, and that includes things like determine if pea gravel needs to be replenished or the bigger ticket items. But then they have a maintenance plan, and it's about mowing and weeding and checking the playground equipment, that kind of stuff. One of the concerns that we noticed while we were out there, we talked about weeding, and they've just determined they're going to edge certain areas, and Public Works has their plan for doing that maintenance. While we were out there, though, the pirate ship had chalk all over it. So somebody's going out there with, I don't know if it's kids or older kids or, but there's, I guess, graffiti, but it's chalk, and it's all over the pirate ship. So the town hired a pressure washer 2 weeks ago to clean the pirate ship, and it's back to being completely covered with chalk. And so next week, me and the Public Works guys are going to go out there with a bucket and a rag and try to do it that way. But one of the things I wanted to run by you was any ideas you might have for deterring that, or relocating it, or there was also, they've used the chalk on the bench that's there that's made of like stone, so it's kind of embedded in the stone. They've drawn on the playground equipment, the wood playground equipment that we had to pressure wash, so probably gonna have to end up restaining that. So it's an issue. And so I just wanted to get your feedback on.
Does it seem like a child, or does it seem like?
Is it
Like-
this high?
Right.
There was a picture on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
other,
The
other
second
thing you
slide
were on.
had one. I mean, it was kind of covered in it, and that's why I was kind of wondering if it was chalkboard paint, and people were thinking that, but I don't remember.
So
it
there
being.
were childlike phrases used several times about bathroom behaviors. So that's what made me think of a kid.
I will tell you, I drove through there the other day, kind of on accident, and I thought it was a chalkboard. Like, I thought it was designed to
chalkboard
be
paint.
like
And
a
people might think
chalkboard
that.
paint. Like, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's like that.
Bummer.
Yep.
It's kind of cute, actually.
It is, except for the,
Hoops.
yeah, all over it. And you see the SS Jason Young sign.
Yeah, that's not nice.
Yeah, that's not, no.
No.
The only thing I can think of would be if when police officers or even public works or any city staff was driving by there to pull in and see. Or give me a big stick and pay me to stick.
Might take you up on that.
Or maybe start with a sign. that says,
Yeah,
"You're
yeah,
not
that's what I was
drawing
thinking.
a-"
Or this is not a
This is not a
chalkboard.
chalkboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a long-term solution is going to be changing whatever type of that. I was not in favor of a wooden playground by the river to begin with. And I just think that this is what happens with some of that, but maybe there's a type of paint that is slick or something that maybe
Sorry, I
won't,
had that thought.
Yeah.
Well,
won't
and
keep chalk.
I wonder if even a different color would deter that, because that does look like chalkboard paint to me.
The idea was someone out there to get some kind of chalkboard and put it up and allow them to draw on that, but I don't know if that would, it's probably more exciting to draw on the ship than it would be.
Well, yeah, and if the chalk is at the playground, they're gonna draw on everything.
Right.
Is there chalk at the playground?
No, that was an idea.
I think that people, when there's like a greenway or something, a lot of times they'll like bring their kids out there and they'll bring
sidewalk,
chalk, like,
yeah.
so they can draw on it. And that's not a problem because it rains and it's gone.
Right.
Whereas here,
No, it's really unfortunate. I think a sign to start does make sense.
Yeah.
A sign? Okay. That was my thought. I mean, it's probably not going to stop it, but it might deter it.
I think if a parent read that and it said, "Hey friends, this is not a chalkboard," please use the sidewalks for your sidewalk chalk or something like that. It would be, the parents would be like, oh, sorry.
Someone's really obsessed with poop.
Yes.
Probably an elementary boy.
Eli.
Probably.
But, I mean, obviously adults are doing this too, because there's, I mean, it's the
Yeah.
whole side there. They're not writing about poop, but,
No. But they think it's a chalkboard.
yeah. I think it one says, I love buns.
I can see the misunderstanding. It does look like a chalkboard for sure.
I'm trying to see if there's a picture. So this area, in between the picnic tables and the playground, they tried to plant grass there, but it's not growing because it's heavily traveled. So they've recommended that we put sod there instead. So that's something I'm looking into. I think it makes sense.
But if you put sod there and people kept walking on it,
Yeah, you
what's
got
the
it.
long-term result? Would it end up being like this? Just like takes longer to get to that point and more money?
Do you have other ideas? Because right now it's just going to mud pit when it rains, and so.
The other thing I could think of would be mulch, and I'm not sure that's a good alternative.
So do you think the fact that it's been so dry has something to do with it too, or is it all just kids,
According
people
to
running
the,
around?
to Equinox, it's the foot traffic.
Okay.
But if you blocked it and let the sod take hold, then,
That's the thing, we'd have to keep people off of it for a while, and I don't know if that's how feasible that is.
It's gonna be hard.
So that's, yeah. We'll put that on the list. We also noticed that the Greenway entrance to the pavilion, people are apparently using that for vehicular traffic, for getting their stuff from their car to the pavilion.
You need a bollard.
So there's some boulders that are in a vegetative area on the other side of this that they're just gonna make grass. So they're gonna take a boulder and put it in the middle, and hopefully that will stop that from happening.
In the middle of the greenway?
In the middle of that entrance, yeah.
But you might need it for an emergency vehicle or maintenance vehicles.
right, and when the guys, or not the guys, but the firefighters did the cookout, like they backed up there with the trailer, the grill trailer, and you're kind of limiting your options.
You might want to consider a removable bollard. They have a lock on the bottom and can fold down.
So in that conversation yesterday, there was concern about the bollards when the greenway is actually built and being used, causing problems with bicycle riders. So that's why they decided to use the boulder. I guess there's new research out there that bollards are a hazard to bicycle riders.
News to me.
Mm-hmm.
So are boulders.
I
I mean, you're making it hard for an emergency vehicle or maintenance truck to get down the greenway.
I've never in a public area seen a boulder put like at a gateway area or anything like that. And I don't know if the eventual plan is, once the entire greenway is done, that Buncombe County will maintain that, or if the town of Woodfin will. But getting along, you've got the two parks, but then like getting like lawnmowers and maintenance vehicles and stuff like that is also going to be something that has to be done on the regular.
That's a good point. Appreciate your feedback. So that's all that's really jumping out at me about Silverline right now. I will stay on top of that maintenance plan and visit that with Public Works a little more often so we can keep up with other things that come up.
The need for shade is really great
Okay.
there. And so I know there are some trees planted, but if there can be, it's just hot in the summer because there's not a lot of shade in that park.
Can I ask just a general question as it relates to parks? So Silverline is obviously so beautiful, and Riverside's going to be amazing. Like, are there funds allocated to bring Geneva Manny and what is it, Roy
Pope.
Roy Pope up to the same standard as the new parks?
That's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that at the moment, but I don't think so. That's one of the reasons I think it's important that we talk about this right now, and we can kind of prioritize easy, medium, hard tasks to get done, and maybe incorporate some of this stuff into our capital improvement plan. But we just don't have that list right now, so I think that's why we're doing this. And I'm going to spend some time with your recommendations, putting them into a list and creating that prioritization that we can talk about again next month, so it stays on the radar and we make sure that stuff's included. I don't think it has been up to this point.
When would be a good month for this committee to go to council and tell them that we've worked with you and we think that there's a couple parks that should be prioritized into capital projects?
Probably in one of our budget work sessions, and I can coordinate that with administration when we talk about the capital improvement plan. So,
It'd be like late winter.
yeah,
That would give us time to identify our priorities.
February, March-ish.
Okay,
And I can keep you in the loop on when those meetings are planned.
okay.
And make sure that that's part of the conversation. I just saw a picture of the wetland. One of the ideas that came up yesterday was I asked if maintenance was going to be required on the wetland, and they didn't put anything on the list for the town and public works department, but they thought it might be a good volunteer opportunity for a group of people if they had experience with wetland management or plants or that kind of thing. So that's just something I'm putting on your radar to think about. If you know anybody that would be interested or have any ideas on how that might look.
I would recommend getting in touch with Asheville Greenworks and seeing if they have a group, because they are helping maintain some of the wetland gardens in the RAD. And they have an agreement, and I'm sure we pay them an annual something or other to do the coordination.
Any community center?
I emailed you, if you can go to your email, the photos. I'll talk through. Start with one.
Nope.
And the basketball court doesn't look too inviting for basketball. It's silt, leafed up, needs to be cleaned. And if you'll just scroll through those photos.
Oh, wrong button, sorry.
Yeah. There's paint or something spilled on it. The lines are tough to see. The goal is broken.
Oh, that was new last year. They didn't have a hoops last year and they put them up. Well,
It seems like vandalism in general is something that needs to be addressed. Like I'm very surprised that there's so much vandalism at these parks.
And this is as far as the gate will open.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it won't go, so it's
That's kind of a problem.
overall just uninviting
Yeah.
to anyone. There. I think the neighbors are parking and no parking spaces. It just looks a little forlorn. pieces of something on the court. There's the, looks like it was part of some type of a skate or biking challenge. And then a piece of metal that's lying on the side, the blue thing. I'm not sure what it is.
That's probably for skating too, I bet. Speaking of which, this
just
town's
leaves,
got a
huh?
bunch of skate ramps. And skate ramps in that storage house. Dude,
I think that, yeah, I think that,
Did you sell them?
yeah, I think that they were determined that they were not safe.
No. Well, nothing about skating is safe. That's not the point.
There's a lot of silt that's drained, there's a drainage issue here where there's silt, quite a bit of silt in one portion of the basketball court, and now leaves. There are overhanging branches from neighboring trees that would probably interfere with play and also cause the leaf buildup. I think that's all the photos in this one. Come to the next. But it's, on the other hand, there's some
Great.
beautiful spots
Yeah.
up there. There's great,
That's part of the park too?
Yeah.
Wow.
near the parking lot. And this is just the entrance where you access the athletic field, the first part, which is not all that inviting either.
Yeah, the stairs are dicey.
Stairs are horrible.
And
That's the-
there has been gravel added in the last,
Yeah,
in
there's
the last
pretty
year,
fresh
which is
gravel.
nice, right?
Does
Yeah.
the Y still manage those?
So the town gives they've got the gravel and stuff, but then we have volunteers come out and help us maintain it. So,
Yeah, but, and even, one thing I thought of, it gets dark while you're down there, it gets pretty dicey with those steps. Is there a way to add lighting? But that's a big cost to do some type of lighting. This is another set of steps that's coming from the upper parking lot to the lower parking lot, which is even dicier than the ones going down to the athletic field. And if you'll notice, there should be on that asphalt through the parking lot at least a striped area to alert motorists that pedestrians are using it to connect this
right.
the pedestrian way from these steps down to the second level of steps. And this is the field. And again, one thing that I was aware of, I'd hate to fall on that field.
Lots of holes.
Lots of holes, just needs to be basically tilled up and reseeded with some type of a grass mixture that would be good for athletic events and create a little bit softer surface. Pieces of equipment lying around and bleachers, that's the seating, those two sets of bleachers. And that's the field. It's pretty tough.
I wonder, and some of y'all who have kids who play on there, I'm just assuming there's drainage issues there.
Yeah, you don't play
Big
when it's
time.
wet.
Yeah, you don't.
And the buildings could use structures could use some upgrading and some aesthetic improvement, especially this one.
No.
Looks like it needs some TLC.
Yeah. And the fencing is in bad shape. And
Yeah.
it's-
And I don't know how long ago this all got built, but we haven't run t-ball or baseball in a long time.
And again, it's one of the things, we need to find out what people want before we start spending a great deal of money.
Pickleball.
We got lots of doors up there.
And that's the other dugout area.
That's the same?
Yeah, I think that one I sent twice.
Okay.
We did number 4, I think. It's a beautiful site, I think the area is great and can be used for a lot of things and become very attractive. It's, close, that gate's locked, but it's really close access to the Mill Village and the residents down there. This is your welcome to as you get down to the park, you're welcome. No parking or driving on the field. think that's, are there any more deaths? I've got a lot more photos, but I didn't want to overwhelm.
I think that's it.
And it's, for a short term, just clean up in the, the basketball court, taking care of the drainage problem. Was able to download some things, and I'll get back. My wife's coming home from a conference tonight, and for all my technical inability, she's a metadata expert, so she'll show me how to.
One, I know there's a tenant in the bottom part of that community center. Is that like a month-to-month thing?
I'm not there anymore.
Okay.
And I think there was a police officer, I think he's a sergeant, who was at the community center when I was there, and I asked him if he ever saw the basketball court being used, and he said occasionally there's some young kids who use it.
Okay. Good to know.
Big challenge. Again, I think it has the opportunity to be a real asset to the community. Finding out what the community needs would be the first step to addressing those longer-term needs.
And the fields do get used. I will say that the field gets used for, there's an agreement for us to use it for our sports because there's no field at the downtown Y. So we do use that for our sports and it gets used quite a bit.
Okay. And that are used for maybe during an off time to reseed it, fill it up, reseed it, and create a better playing field.
Absolutely, yeah. Because there definitely are spots, like we can't line a field right here because there's divots and.
All right, well, thanks for doing that homework, and I'll compile it all, and we can revisit it next month and continue that conversation up towards budget season, so that's good.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda are new business items, the pump track discussion, which we've already decided we'll shelve until next month to talk with Walt around. Review of Parks and Greenways master plan.
Yeah, so as has been mentioned several times today, there's been talk of a new master plan for Parks and Greenways. And there was one that was just done in 2019, so I didn't know if you guys were aware of it. I just wanted to go through the highlights of that plan so we could know what it says and maybe it could lead us to the next steps. So background, the plan was adopted in 2019. There was limited community engagement for the plan. There was one open house, and then there was an online for Silverline Park, but it was used towards this plan, and then there was an online survey. And there's a summary of the 2011 Greenways, Bikeways, and Sidewalks plan that had some interesting projects associated with it, most of which have not been completed. And I have them listed here. So there's the Beaver Dam Creek Greenway, which that's obviously, we've got that in the planning stages now. But the sidewalk projects listed here have not been completed, and as far as I know, haven't been discussed in the immediate past. So we have a sidewalk on Jonestown Road from Elk Mountain Road to Roy Pope Park. And it was all centered around connectivity to recreation from the neighborhoods that are central to Woodfin. So there's a sidewalk on Reynolds Mountain Boulevard connecting to Weaverville Road. I'm assuming to go to the Y. It didn't really expand upon that. A sidewalk on Martell Road, 5th and 6th Streets, connecting them to Elk Mountain Road and to Riverside Drive and the park there. A sidewalk on Green Oak Road and Woodfin Avenue from Elk Mountain to Riverside Drive to Silverline Park. And then a sidewalk on the entirety of Old Marshall Road from Weaverville Road to Riverside Drive. So those were the projects identified in the 2011 plan that were covered in the 2019 plan. So the parks that it identifies are the ones that we just did the State of the Parks for, except for Silverline Park, as it exists today, was in the design phase. And then it identified future parks as the Woodfin Wave, the Greenway, and Silverline Park, which is now completed. The existing programming identified, and just having been just 3 years ago, I wasn't aware of the annual Labor Day picnic. I guess that used to be held at the community center.
It was at the,
Um,
right here.
Oh, you just.
That's what I was talking about, where the fire engines and the helicopter
Okay.
come.
It referenced town sponsorships to the Woodfin Youth League and the Golden Age Club. It referenced cooperation with YMCA for the youth soccer fields, and then more sponsorships to 5K and the fishing tournament. But that was as extensive as the programming got. So for the responses to the survey, there were 164 respondents, majority between 18 and 40, 55% of the respondents. 50% of those lived closest to Riverside Park, and Riverside was the most visited, with Roy Pope second most visited. And the thing I thought was very interesting was 80% of the respondents had never been to Geneva Maney Park.
That's not surprising.
It's not
not
really
at all.
inviting part.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't go up Lookout Road, you have no idea that it's even there.
And wasn't it called like Woodfin Riverview Park or something until, or has it always been Geneva?
It's always been Maney to me.
It's like Woodfin Community Center North or something. But it got renamed, I guess, when Maney stopped being the commissioner.
So what should Woodfin add in 2019? 92% thought we needed to add trails and greenways. Swimming pools was a big deal.
Swimming pool as a whole, you throw your money in.
River access and boat launches, pet-friendly facilities, playgrounds. So some of these things have been addressed in the last few years with the current parks projects. What was not so interesting were baseball fields, soccer fields, and weight training facilities. They did get some feedback from the elementary school, the students at the elementary school, and they wanted more swings, seesaws, and slides.
That means something.
But they did identify basketball and soccer as their favorite sports to play. So. For programming, they asked what kind of programming should be added. 50% wanted more special events, like a movie night or a game night or yoga classes. I think that was meant for the community center. But less than 50%.
What is the community center, the building used for now?
It's rented out periodically. Is it used for any? That's.
Randomly, the town will, that's what they're about to do.
Voting.
It's a voting.
It's a voting site.
It's a voting site, and there was a town hall meeting there last night, so those kind of things.
I've seen like quinceañera paraphernalia there too in the parking lot.
Mhm.
Was it well attended last night?
I think they said there were about 30 people there.
Okay, because I went to the first one and it was packed. It was great. Do you have like demographic information on Woodfin residents?
Yeah.
Like census data? Would that
Like
just be
cen- yeah, census.
data?
American
Did-
Communities Survey has some updated information.
Why do you ask?
I was just thinking about, I mean, this is totally random, but my mother, who's 81, has now started going to these exercise classes that are free. It's like a senior center. And I just was curious in my mind, I'm like, I wonder like what the population in Woodfin looks like. Do we skew older? Is it younger families? Which would weigh
I think
into.
it's younger.
Yeah, I think it is younger.
There was a grant application that it might be a part of the master plan, or there's some document that we have access to that they were reporting on that demographic information as it related to this grant. So it's there, maybe like on the
Okay.
team site could be
Yeah.
found, or that's probably out of date too. There might be more recent census type data, but.
Sorry.
I can look.
Sorry
in-
to derail.
yeah.
The median age is 39 years old. It's,
It's young.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at all of the things that they were asking for, like the desired facilities in the survey, and it doesn't look to me like a lot of teenagers were answering
I doubt it.
that.
Yeah.
And There's never enough stuff for teenagers to do on their own, if you ask me.
Oh, I'm guessing that if there's 164 people and there was something that was specific to like Silverline, a lot of the stuff was probably like ancillary. Like I don't know how valuable some of the data seems.
Yeah, right. I agree. Communication preferences, I just thought this was interesting. Social media is obviously a favorite for getting information about the parks from the town and website updates, but they also prefer to emails and the town newsletter, so I thought that was interesting. They did not want direct mail or text messages, and that might be different 3 years later.
Right.
Right. But that makes sense if the median age is 39.
Yeah, here's the population pyramid. If I'm reading it right, these are the ages with 50 years old is there. So
Yeah.
there looks like there's a lot of young adults and college-age kids. Doesn't surprise me being a mile from UNCA. If that makes any sense to you. So I think that this is 0 and this is 50 years old, and these are males and these are females. So the longer the line, the more of a percentage they have. So,
It's interesting, thank you.
yeah.
So, on to the recommendations and implementation of the plan. So we got the Parks and Greenways, recommends focusing on the Greenway Blueway project for the next 2 to 4 years, providing the connectivity between neighborhoods, which is interesting. I don't think that was a big part of the survey, but it's, I think, a reference to that 2011 plan. Improve and expand restroom facilities at the park. Look for property acquisition opportunities for future parks. I'm not sure that would be a top goal these days.
Right.
And then consider an ordinance amendment to require percentage of new development to go towards parks and greenways. For recreational facilities, form partnerships for future facilities or acquire property for new facilities. And then continue the partnership with City of Asheville and Buncombe County for intramural sports leagues, ball fields, and other programs. For programming, they want us to offer special events, game night, movie night, yoga, Tai Chi classes, and utilize the community center more. The plan recommends hiring a full-time staff member to operate the parks and grow that department over 2 to 5 years once construction is complete. And then identify potential funding sources for the projects, GO bonds, grants, corporate sponsorships, and rental usage fees. So that is in general what the current master plan says and lays out. So I know we were talking about, it's been floated the idea of a new parks master plan. And I'm a little bit skeptical about doing that right now. We're getting ready to embark upon a comprehensive planning process. And we've just did the survey for Silverline. I don't want the fatigue of the community to take over and that plan,
Yeah.
be lost. And so we can look at what we have on the books now and think about things that we should address that haven't been, or how far we've come from that plan. I think the state of the parks review and creating that prioritization for future upgrades to the park might be a good step at this point. So I just wanted to get your feedback on how you feel about what I just said about the new plan and what next steps you think we should take.
I think one thing that really is surprising to me, and maybe it's because just in the general budget, it was expected that maintenance of the existing facilities was already kind of taken care of, but that's not something that was addressed in there. And so from my perspective, I think we need to take care of what we have currently, and then it's easier when we go to the community to say, like, look at Silverline Park, that process worked really well, and you got this great thing. Look at Riverside, that worked really well. Let's start to talk about these other parks as well. But in the meantime, we know that there's safety issues and just general stuff that needs to be taken care of. And I think determining what the cost of that stuff is and bringing that to the commissioners would be my priority over doing another like master plan.
I would agree with that.
I agree.
Same.
I think we've got a lot to do just to get the existing parks cleaned up and more functional.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's still a lot left in that 2019
Right.
park plan anyway to get done. A 3-year-old park plan's not old.
No.
Exactly.
18, 25 years old now. Now you're
Like the one in
talking.
Asheville?
Yes, that's what I was talking about.
So that sounds like a consensus. So I'll spend some time putting together another conversation for next month around this. And we'll get a plan together based on what we already have and what we're working towards now.
Well, and in terms of the programming, is that anything that like we should really be addressing, or do you think that this is something where it's like, because they did recommend, I think it was like a full-time recreation person or something like that, that would be part of, if that was a position that was developed and they approved, the commissioners approved it, would fall underneath that person as opposed to like a group of volunteers to be doing like game night and yoga. I mean.
I'm not that. You don't want me doing that.
Okay. I think that comes with redefining the subcommittees as well, you know, what the roles are of that, and should programming be part of that? So that's another thing we can talk about again next month.
Okay.
So as part of that, I don't know if you want to talk about the next agenda item today or not. When I was talking to Walt about reviewing the plan and then the connectivity items, he had mentioned putting on the agenda walking access for Woodfin residents as a point of the next agenda topic. And I know, Lucy, you had sent out the grant opportunity for,
Reconnected communities.
there we are. And so that was I didn't know if you could kind of explain what that was or how that could benefit the town or what that might do to connectivity.
Yeah, well, so I'm not an expert on it either. It's a brand-new grant that is starting to enroll with the Biden infrastructure law, but it's called Reconnecting Communities, and it's a type of transportation grant that's specifically given to communities that have been divided by transportation facilities like interstates. And Woodfin, in my mind, is a perfect example of East Woodfin and Main Woodfin being divided. But I think that, and the thing that I'm always thinking about is the bridge, and when the DOT is making the I-26 improvements, that we should fight really hard to make sure that all the facilities are put onto the bridge when they make that, and making the connection all the way down to the east side of Woodfin. But I think also you might be able to get the grants to do the sidewalks in your recreation plan, just because you've been divided by the federal highways, that you don't necessarily have to have a whole long list of projects, just what you can
Okay.
possibly afford. But they're just now unrolling their information. They're called FOMOs, and that stands for something. I don't know what. FOMO.
Federal
And-
obligation to, I don't know.
There you go, that thing. And they're always changing it still because it's so brand new. But just find out if it's something that you could right-size just for your parks plan and the sidewalks that the list you just showed.
Right.
Or if not, then you could make it bigger and connect the two ends of Woodfin that were divided. But
There's a deadline
Well, yeah, I think the deadline for this year's submittals is this week, the end of this week. So, but it's going to be available for at least 5 years, and they have planning grants and construction grants. So I would just say spend this year getting ready to
Okay.
make a proposal for next year.
Okay.
But there's other funding sources through the MPO. I don't think that they're going to have any big calls for funding until '27 now, but
Right.
just, there's always funds for sidewalks.
Do you know if there's a maximum amount for connecting communities or connecting communities?
I'm sure that they do have a maximum amount, but it's a big one because they're thinking of cities that have really been divided. So it's going to be an expensive grant. Typically, the grants, the federal highway grants, the municipality needs to pay 20% match.
And it looks like it actually, there's more money available each year as it builds on, because obviously more people will apply as it goes through there, so.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I might just leave that on the agenda for next month, just in case Walt needed to add anything to that conversation.
I might know more about it too
Okay.
by next month. All right, well, let's see. Next thing on the agenda is project updates from staff.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a couple updates on the Greenway Blueway. So this week, they were doing a survey of the French Broad River for the Appalachian elk toads and endangered species in that portion of the river. And the Army Corps of Engineers is requiring that survey to be done before permitting starts, I guess. And
What is
so,
it?
Appalachian elk toe, it's a mussel.
Toe.
Elk toe. So I guess they were out there yesterday, and I think they're going to finish up by the end of the week. So we'll get those results pretty quickly. We had to turn that around pretty quick because we didn't realize the Corps was going to require that. So that'll be interesting. Equinox submitted the final design of Riverside on September 30th, so they're ready for permitting. We're still waiting on a few more things from S2O on the wave, but the plans will be sent to the permitting agencies pretty soon. We have received a nomination for naming rights for the wave, and that will be going to the Board of Commissioners next week for review.
What is it?
Hey,
Thank you for asking. I was thinking, like, ooh, is anyone going to?
It's Mark Hunt's son. Taylor.
I love that. Sorry, naming
The
for
Taylor Hunt Waterway?
Taylor Hunt Wave. I don't know if the commissioners make a decision next week or not. I believe it's reviewed the final decision won't be next week, but it'll be introduced next week. We're in discussions with Norfolk Southern and DOT about access to the construction easement to the other side of the river for the wave, and that's proving to be an interesting conversation. So we're hoping that we can make some headway on that soon. And Eric and I are going to be visiting the rock quarry at the end of the month to see where they are on the stone for the wave, and it's going to take a while to.
where are you
get on
getting
that.
this stone?
It's Hedrick Rock Quarry, I believe.
North Buncombe, I think it said.
Yeah. They started talking a year ago or so. So I'll let you know what we find out from that meeting. We met with the Craggy Railroad middle of September about the Greenway crossings. along a couple of their properties on Riverside Drive. And there's going to be a follow-up meeting scheduled with Republic Services, because there was some ideas that came out of that to move the crossing away from the railroad. And that we got more accurate idea from the railroad about how close the Greenway could be in their easement. And so that was a helpful conversation. And then the public input session for the Greenway is going to be held at the French Broad River Academy. I think we discussed that. It's October 27th from 5 to 7, and I believe it's at the boys' campus.
What's the objective of that meeting?
Just to get feedback on the plan so far for the Greenway, let people know where that line is going to be going, how it's going to affect the properties along that corridor. Open to the general public so we can get feedback from everybody, not just that area of people. And we're going to be pushing that civil line building survey at that meeting too, so that, because it'll be closing at the end of the month, so we can really get as much feedback on that as we can.
I forwarded it to the school, and they said they would get it out to all their, however all the ways they do communication. They said they would push it too.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Once you get the permits for, I guess, the first priority is Riverside Park, that's going to happen before Greenway, is that right? What's the turnaround time? Because I remember hearing, like, last year when we started this process, permitting takes a while. So what is kind of a true assessment of when shovels will be going?
The initial thought is that permitting will take 9 months.
Wow.
So construction will begin late summer next year.
Is that standard to take 9 months?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. But what's the organization that processes those permits? Sorry to be so naive. But
It varies.
It's several
So-
different organization or departments, Army Corps of Engineers,
Okay.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife, federal level departments, and then you got the state level departments and local level departments. Has to go through North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. So
Five
there's
Bands of Cherokee.
Wow. Is there like a checklist? How do you all like keep?
It's a checklist.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does it go like, okay, once they sign off, then it can be forwarded to the next organization? Is there
No.
like a protocol in that? No?
No, I can't think of any that has to be signed first before it can
Okay.
go to them, but it just takes time.
Yeah, sure.
It seems to me like the Army Corps of Engineers might have the final say on some of this, but I don't know if that's exactly how
So
it works or
interesting.
not.
It's so not my world. I don't know anything
For
about
the Greenway, it needs to have a proof that it won't create a rise in the floodplain. That takes probably the longest part of it. And then just getting the DOT to approve schedules.
Interesting.
So,
What a process. Wow. Thank you.
but the funding, it's all, the Greenway is 100% funded now, and the Waterway is too, right?
Right.
That's great, congratulations. That's huge.
It is.
Okay. Is that all for staff updates?
That's all, yep.
All right, Adrian, thanks. So she mentioned, we're on the important dates section of our agenda, and October 27th at the French Broad River Academy is the Greenway public meeting that the county is hosting. If you all can make it, that'll be great.
And was that 5 o'clock you said? 5
It's,
p.m.
yeah, 5 to 7, I think. And the deadline for the Silver Line Park surveys is October 31st.
And the next PGAC meeting's November 9th.
November 9th, okay. And I believe, unless there's anything else that people would like to add to the future discussion items?
One question I have is,
Yeah,
I built them and placed them, but why are we discussing all the free libraries? Is that within the purview of Parks and Rec?
I mean, on the website, it says it's part of the Parks and Recreation Department.
Well, I've seen lots of things on websites.
I mean, my suggestion would be, like Ann said, so at the county, we actually had the woodshop class at Inca do all the little free libraries that were in the county parks. And they made them like uniform and put shingles on them and stuff like that, but they're all in pretty rough shape unless they're like actually underneath an overhang of some sort. And so I think that would be, maybe we make a recommendation to the commissioners that those get removed and rehabbed before they're put back in or something. But to your point too, like the places that they're put aren't always necessarily the places that make the most sense.
And they're not always the public realm either.
Yeah.
In someone's yard. Did we go pull up one in somebody's yard?
No, I think that the town bought a certain number of
Oh.
them and placed them with some sort of intention originally. I mean, but if I had one in my yard, I wouldn't be expecting the town to maintain it. But it's just these certain ones that are blue with the little slats on top, and they have a thing that says Little Free Library
If the
Trail.
town bought them, why doesn't Public Works maintain them?
Question?
We've got, and I say that because we've got a pretty heavy load on our plates, just trying to identify maintenance priorities, programming and so forth, and I just, it's a very good question.
I would imagine they probably were like, oh, well, we only have 2 parks and this is like something else to put on there that makes it look like we've got more services for the people who live here.
Let me try to track down the Boy Scout situation before we.
If not, maybe Irwin High has.
Oh, yeah.
A woodworking department. I love that idea,
Mhm.
having students work on cleaning them up.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else to add to future items for future meetings, then I call this meeting adjourned.
Okay,
4:53.
All right.
good work.
Excellent.